Hi there! Today we're gonna make our simple web server process and serve PHP pages. For that we have to explain our NGINX how to process PHP files. And obviously for that we have to check NGINX documentation. Let's look it up in Google. And the very first link is nginx.org, which is NGINX official web page. And just about below that we have that beginner's guide link. So let's go there. Basically we are looking for a FastCGI proxying section. And that's right there. And FastCGI is a binary data transfer protocol which web servers use to transfer data. So this is what we have to update or change in our NGINX configurations right now. But how to update that configurations in Docker's image? For that we have to check Docker's NGINX page. And here we have an example, customize configuration. And this section explains how can we extract default configuration file from the container. Let's copy it. What we see here is actual Docker executive with the parameter run, some additional parameters, and entry point that's basically a command that would be executed on the container start. The name of the container, that's basically the same what we use here, and path of the configuration file and our host machine path. So we have to change that a bit. I will simply keep it in the root of the project. And this is our configuration file. Let's open it. And nothing interesting except this line. This line says this specific configuration file includes another one. Let's see what we have there. For that we're gonna use the same command with slight modification. First of all, we want to see what that folder contains. So we need to list that specific directory. So list, then it's nginx conf d conf d folder, and no redirect, so we actually see the output of the command. And we see only one configuration file there, so we can extract that file and modify it in the future. And again, the same command, only we are gonna change the path. Conf d, name of the file, and the destination file. Okay, this is our configuration file. Yep, that's exactly what we've been looking for. And even more, we have an example here. So let's uncomment this section. What we see here is our root path. Basically, that's just an example here. FastCGI pass is an IP address where NGINX will try to pass our request. FastCGI index is not important right now, so let's keep it index.php. And some include FastCGI default params. What is important for us right now? This IP address. Basically, we have to replace it with the IP address of what will process our PHP files. For that, we're gonna add service to our Docker Compose file, PHP image. What image, you ask? Again, Google Docker PHP, very first link. And please keep in mind that PHP itself doesn't work as server, it doesn't have any daemons, so it won't work with the NGINX by itself. We're gonna use PHP-FPM, which serves our PHP pages through that FastCGI protocol for our NGINX setup. So simple search, FPM, and here we have our PHP-FPM section. Actually, according to the search results, one of many, one of 15 to be exact, but we're gonna use this specific one. Now we have our image name, and now we have to share some folder where we are gonna keep our PHP files. Now when we have our PHP image set, we have to add volumes, our folder where we are going to keep our PHP files. I'm going to use exactly the same path just to keep it simple. Of course, you can configure it in any possible way, but let's keep it simple. So now pay attention to the name of this PHP container. The name is PHP, and that's actually important at this point because Docker resolves containers' names to their IP addresses internally. So that's exactly what we're gonna use in our configuration file. Let's replace this IP with our container's name, which is PHP, which is going to be resolved into specific IP address. At this point, obviously, our root is not exactly HTML, and it is this path. So let's use this instead. And now let's pay attention to this line, FastCGI params, script file name, and a path. Obviously, we do not use that scripts, and we have this variable, FastCGI script name. And let's take a look on the original NGINX documentation. So here we have this line, and it looks a bit different. It has this document root in the beginning of that FastCGI script name. So we're gonna use this path. What it does is it replaces these variables with actual parameters. Our document root is our actual root. FastCGI script name is a script name we are requesting through our HTTP request. And that's exactly what we are gonna send to this script file name, and that's exactly what is going to be processed by PHP inside of our container. So at this point we have our configuration set, and now we only have to substitute container's original default conf with our modified one. For that, let's add one more volume. Let's organize our folder a bit. Add one more folder, NGINX. So basically we do not need this NGINX config because we haven't changed a thing here. So we can simply remove it. And let's move this default file into our newly created NGINX folder. Yep. And now we can substitute our files. So the host path is NGINX default conf, and internal containers path is this one. Nice. Looks like we have all set. And obviously we're missing PHP file we're gonna serve. Just as a basic example. Now let's bring our project up. Docker compose up. Yep. Let's check it. Okay, that's our static HTML file and our test PHP. Yep, it works. Even simple projects require some place to store data. In our case, it's gonna be MySQL database. So let's set up one. As usual, one more service. Let's call it DB image. And again, let's Google MySQL database Docker containers official page. As usual, the very first link, Docker Hub. As usual, let's take a quick look. And here we have an example. Image MySQL. That's exactly what we're gonna use. And then we have some parameters. Command, restart, environment. Let's copy it. Okay, authentication, plugin, MySQL native password. That's a start command. Let's use it as is. This is it. So MySQL root password is example, but what is the username? Obviously it's root, but what if we want to use something different? Let's check the page. And here we have environment variables section with a lot of them actually. You can read which does what, but actually we are looking for MySQL user and MySQL password. Let's copy it. I'm gonna use test as a username and let's use password as a password. And that's basically it. But how to manage our database? And there is one more variable we can use here, is actual MySQL database. Basically, if there is no database with the name we're going to specify, it creates one. So let's just name it testDB. As you know, there is a very powerful database management system, PHPMyAdmin. So let's add one to our project as well. PHPMyAdmin. That's the name of the service, image, and again, Google. Very first link, PHPMyAdmin, official page. A quick scroll, variables, support, and here we are, example. Image, restart, ports. Obviously it's already taken by our NGINX container, so we're gonna use something different. Let's use 8888. Obviously, we have to specify an IP address or domain name for our database and username and password. And looks like we have to use environment variables. So let's check the name of that variables. So here we have PMA host, PMA user, and PMA password. As you already know, Docker resolves containers names into the IP addresses, so we can use simply this name. User, we have it here. Oops. And a password. Yep, that is correct. So let's try it. Stop and bring it up again. So how can we view our PHPMyAdmin page? Basically, there is no like host name for our PHP container. That's the problem we are gonna resolve a bit later. And now we can simply use our local host with this port. Localhost. Yep, that's our PHPMyAdmin page with our test database. Obviously it's empty. We haven't created a thing yet. Obviously it's not very convenient using that localhost and randomly created ports for accessing containers we need. So let's fix it. There is a really cool tool for that. It's called Traefic. Again, Google Docker Traefic, very first link, usual review page, but there is nothing very informative here. What we are looking for is its official documentation. We're gonna take a look at version 2. And here we're gonna look at user guides, Docker, basic example. And that's actually what we're gonna use in our example. I have cleaned it up a bit so nothing disturbs us. Let me explain a few things here. As usual, container name, version, commands, that's internal commands Traefic uses for its configuration. Basically, what we are looking here is that web address. That's basically its internal address. We are not going to change that. Only one thing we're going to change, this port. We're going to use 8080. And such as it's already taken by our NGINX container, we are gonna remove it from here. We do not need it anymore. Actually, let's keep it 8000, and that 8080 we're gonna use for its administrative page. I'm gonna show it to you a bit later. Volumes, that's how that Traefic container communicates with Docker app. Let's keep it in the same way. And now let's go back to the example to check how we can assign actual host names to our containers. So we're gonna use labels. Let's clean it up a bit. I'm gonna add one empty line in between containers. So first of all, we want to have access to our NGINX, which is our web server. It serves pages. We need to have access there. So labels, Traefic enabled true, that's correct, routes, and let's change that name to something else. that's the name of the route Traefic uses in its administrative pages. So we're gonna use NGINX, entry point web, that's correct. We do not have to have access here, so let's keep it the same for database. PHPMyAdmin, we're definitely want to have access here. True PMA. And let's call it Drupal flow localhost. Yep, that's correct. And this one is gonna be PMA Drupal flow localhost. Yep, looks correct. So let's restart our containers. Everything is okay, and let's check if it works. And keep in mind that we're going to use that 800 port. 8000, sorry. Yep, we have access here, and let's check if it works with our web server. No, we have to keep it. Yep. And our PHP page, test PHP. Yep, it works as well. So basically now we have a very simple local development environment, which includes our web server. We use NGINX for that. We have PHP, we have our database management system, which is PHPMyAdmin, and we have our names resolver, which is Traefic. So let's call it a day. If you like the video, please subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. In the upcoming video, I will show you a very advanced version of this simple setup, and eventually we are gonna install Drupal, so stay tuned.